how to build an effective digital government. And we are blessed with the opportunity to hear the tips and tricks for excellent execution from two experienced captains with a proven track record in building digital public services. They will share their insights and lessons learned during a fireside chat, and I'm glad to introduce both fire starters to you. Leonardo Quattrucci advises governments and businesses on putting technology to public service. At the European Commission, he served as a member of the European Political Strategy Center, which is the advisory service to the President. At Amazon Web Services, he was the head of technical programs at the Center for Quantum Networking. Today, he is a senior fellow at the International Center for Future Generations and a senior advisor to Apolitical, a learning network to upskill governments. So no doubts that he can educate us on what it entails to build an effective digital government. Thanks a lot for being with us today, Leonardo. And at the other side of this fire, we have Diego Piacentini, who was the former extraordinary commissioner for the digital transformation of the Italian government. The center of gravity for his business career was with both Apple and Amazon. So at Apple, he was general manager and vice president for the EMEA region at the end of the 90s. And he also served as senior vice president of the international consumer business at Amazon, where he was also a member of the senior executive team reporting to Jeff Bezos. Diego is currently a member of the board of directors at DoorDash, at the Economist Group, at Voy Technologies, and also at Apolitical. He's an advisor for KKR and Axor Ventures and a mentor to many startups in Europe, in the US, and India. I believe he makes the perfect sparring partner for Leonardo for an insightful fireside chat on the digital transformation on public services. So may you all also warmly welcome Diego Piacentini.
Hello. You're probably going to wonder why do Italians are going to talk about efficiency. You just heard about lasagna. That's what you generally are known for, but we're going to be trying to break conventional thinking.
The stigma.
Yes.
In fact, I was sharing yesterday.
By the way, lasagna is really heavy, so it's not a great thing.
We're going to talk about agility, so we don't recommend eating it before trying to build a digital government. Diego, you and I talked about how to build an effective digital government in 2018. We met at a university roundtable around this topic, and you had just left the Italian government. I had just left the European Commission. And I was about to join Amazon, where you had come from when you became extraordinary commissioner at the Italian government. I laugh when they put us on the same panel. If you're the Yoda master, I'm the Padawan. But you had 2 years to build a digital government when you were called from the Italian prime minister at the time. How did you build that operating system, and what are your greatest achievements?
Well, I would like to start from, showing a few numbers here, first of all, so we know exactly what we're going to be talking about. Can you put the slides on, please? There it is. No?
Yep.
Next. Coming. Keep clicking. Okay. There it is. So here's what we're talking about. Something concrete. Oh, no, there it is. I have it. So this is a combination of output and input. Let me, keeping this in the background, try to follow my explanation. Fast backward, 2016, I met with by the way, I was in the Italian government 27 months. And I was with and this is very typical Italian, I had 3 prime ministers. It is changing, but I had 3 prime ministers at that time. So at some point, Matteo Renzi was the Italian prime minister, came to the Silicon Valley, asked to meet with myself, other Italian entrepreneurs, that I have this mission. I was actually the first prime minister of his vision was digitalizing Italy. It was a very high level vision. He asked me if I was interested in leading it. I asked for, what does that mean? The explanation wasn't very clear. And I said, when you think you have it more clear, let's talk about it. Fast forward another 6 months, that was actually 2015. He had already, by the way, he had won the European election in Italy with 42% of the votes. I kept thinking though about it. After 18 years at Amazon, 13 years at Apple, do I want to do something for my country? You know, I'm also a US citizen, but I am Italian at heart, and I still consider myself Italian. And I thought that was an opportunity. So he came back a few months later. He told me the same story, so nothing absolutely more concrete, but I decided to undertake the effort. So pretty much is, how do you take this political vision from, you know, let's put it the ceiling down all the way to the stable and make it a little bit more concrete? And August 2016, I started in Rome. August in Italy, as you well know, is nobody's around other than tourists, so Rome was completely empty. Started working with a small team of 2 or 3 people. And I started from really focusing, and here I'm getting, this is going to be a little bit of a conversation from, you know, practical tips to, you know, maybe higher vision. The higher vision was, and allow me this analogy, the customer centricity of Amazon. How does that mean in terms of government towards citizen? Which is, at the end of the day, one of the reasons for governments to exist is also to make the life of citizens easier and better. And so we're starting from that vision is, how do we make a few practical things better? I mean, just to give you an idea, paying taxes is painful. Paying taxes with obsolete, bureaucratic, very hard systems is even more painful. So starting from those kind of concepts, how can we build that? And so decided from digitizing Italy became to, let's make a few services more accessible. And the idea was, why don't we put everything in one location so that a citizen not only can receive messages, information, but also, and this is the absolute key, make payments and receive money. Anything that is within a relationship between citizens will work and will be adopted if you have the forcing function of making money transact through that. I'll save you all the hurdles we had to go through the Bank of Italy, through all the banking system that was very resistant to make this app like a place to pay, because it would take the role of banking a little lower, although we created a role for them, that's the reason why it worked. And you will see on the left, I don't know if it's able to see it really well, the number of years. It's January 17 all the way to January 20, I can't read it, 24.
Yep.
So I was the first 2 years, so I'm actually not the person that generated all the benefits. So the idea is, we need to have an app. What do we do to have an app? You know, that's the user interface, that's easy. Well, relatively easy. What do we need to build? So and that's the point of separating inputs from outputs. And we started working on 4 basic tools. That's why we call them enabling platforms. Now, funny enough, those tools already existed in a law. Italy is really good at issuing laws. I think we have more laws than UK, Germany, and France all together. We don't lack laws. We lack execution. And so we had 4 basic platforms where we thought. One is called PagoPA, which is Public Administration Payment System, which is a brilliant idea, the reconciliation. Accepting all modern payment systems, which sounds duh, but it wasn't. Reconciling the accounting system of all the administrations with the payment systems, which sounds duh, but it wasn't existing. You would not believe the amount of back office work that was necessary to reconcile payments and reconciling with the accounting system. So that was the basic part. So remember, anything that is in order to be successful, anything in order to be adopted, needs to have payments built in. The other one was a common database with all the data of the citizens, which at that time in Italy was owned by the single 7,800 or 900 municipalities. So the idea was to create, so like I'm a citizen, I live in Rome, I transfer to Milan or Turin, whatever, the data did not come with me. Every time that I moved to a new municipality, I had to introduce myself again. Hello, I'm here. And you have to register with a local health system, with a local tax system, with all those things together. So the idea was to create a formal national database for which, and believe me, there's a lot, in the 60 million countries, a lot of people move around. The other one was, and this was in coordination with the European Union, the digital identity. How do I sign in all public administration services with a single sign-on activity, which is secure, level 2, in some cases it was even level 3 security, ADAS compliant, so we built all of those. So going back to the Matteo Renzi's statement, how to digitize Italy, the issue is that, and you heard this from the previous panel, that in most of the activities driven by politicians and policymakers, you always stay at the level of the vision. You think that creating a law, you fix the issue. And I find myself with those, there are like a very detailed law for each of those three systems. Digital identity, all design, all built. By the way, Italy has also this peculiarity, I don't know how much it works in the other countries, for which they own at least 5 or 6 software companies that are 100% government owned. So they get most of the work around those basic systems. But there were like a couple 100,000 users. Nobody was using it. It was clunky, it was really hard to use. And again, conversation, same thing for the National Register of the database. The ministry, I'm really sorry, I'm going to the level of details that sounds a little bit too much, but it actually does explain how things work. The Ministry of Interior owned the citizen database. The system, let's call it the software, the platform was built by Sogei, which is the internal software company, which by the way did excellent jobs in the health system. And out of 700 and 600 municipalities located in 2002, I ran in 2016, only one had migrated to the new system. And the conversation with the Minister of Interior, guess what it was about? Oh, we need to create another law so that we punish the municipalities that don't migrate to this new system. We tried the new system. It was awful. It didn't work. It was just, I mean, I could not even describe it. So I tried to, and I was attending those meetings between the representatives of the municipalities and the Ministry of Interior, where I saw chairs flying. And it was really a pathetic view. The point is that, why am I here? And therefore, the point is that, listen, don't focus on building punishment tools. If they're not migrating to this new system, it's because this new system sucks. It's awful. It just doesn't work, number one. Number two, don't forget, there's a lot of local legacy software companies that love systems that don't work because that's their business model, is to make it work, to be called to make it work. So we had a bad new platform and a bunch of legacy software companies that love the old way of doing things. So it's going to that level of details that allow to make it work. And the other point is, go ahead, last question.
And what, those are the outputs, but you actually now have all 100% of municipalities on that system.
We do have that municipality on their system because I was able to hire, the reason why you said the extraordinary commissioner, it's not because of the title sound. Well, the title sounds a little cool. My kids were making fun of me because it was called extraordinary commissioner. But because that's what I found out within the Italian legislation. In fact, the choice was I was supposed to be either vice minister of economic development But talking to Carlo Calenda, who was the minister at that time, he told me, listen, this is a title, but nobody will care. You won't do shit with that title. Think about this. Commissioner has two great things. You can hire people directly, and you can replace the head of an administration if they don't want to do what you're asking. I was much more interested in number one, because number two, I mean, at the end of the day, it just puts you in a conflictual situation. And it worked. In 4 months, I made a call. I posted an article on Medium. I had a couple of great interviews. And I received 3,000 applications of a lot of computer scientists, legal people. I had a job description for all the things we needed. And a lot of people that took a leave of absence from Google, Italians in California, came to Rome for 6 months and worked on it. So we built a team of about 40 people. I created teams for each of those projects, the National Registry, the digital identity, and the payment system. Rather than telling the public administration, you suck, let us do this, we fix everything, we'll build everything, we created a good relationship with the owners of those, and we work with them to improve them. Now, I built a level of patience that I would have never believed I could have done in my life. Because mine was overall an anthropological experience where I really built the capability of dealing with irrational people. That is absolutely one of the skills that you absolutely need to develop. Now, you might think this is Italian. There is a lot of Italianity in this, but then work with many other governments, it's more government than Italian. So but the key input was, and you heard that, talent. Talent, talent, talent. And people that want to do and build this on a mission. So it was much easier to say, hey, those are the 3 projects. I need those skills. Are you interested in applying and working for Italy for 2 months? By the way, well, those 40 people, 15 are still working there.
Yeah. But one of the things that you always say is that you put the right talent in charge of the right jobs, but you also didn't reinvent the wheel.
Correct.
Right.
That is,
so you went and looked at what was there already and tried to fix it and motivated the administrations to help you fix that. How did you do that?
well, we did it because, again, if you get into, I'm coming from the private, I'm an Amazon guy, I know how to do things, you are just going to be rejected. And correctly so, because who are you? I mean, you come from Mars and you think you're going to fix things? No, so you do need to build this level of cooperation. And again, I had that special power of firing people, which was always in the background. I believe that helped.
Motivated.
But that was not the main reason. The main reason was, how can we fix it? And let's be clear, most of those things are fixable. By the way, tip number 3, I found out that many of the laws that created those enabling platforms had built-in technological choices, which is the stupidest thing you can put in a law, because as you well know, technology becomes quickly obsolete, and every time that you had to make a change, we had to change the decrees that generated the law. So it is very important that when it's, and that's also the conversation about AI, it needs to be the European Union, local governments needs to be very, very, very careful to create guidelines versus imposing standards.
Right, because technology evolves faster and becomes
absolutely, and then you get stuck. By the way, and I'm going to save you with the procurement. I'm going to save you with that. It's a huge issue. It's a huge issue also at the US level, at the US government. So it's not, I mean, I can't tell you. It's, in my opinion, I think it's almost unresolvable. So governments just need to deal with a procurement system that will not work because it doesn't optimize for the right things. But keeping that aside, you still, within that, you can do a few things, but the procurement system is all.
So tip number 1 is hire the right people. Number 2, put them in charge of the right jobs.
And understand what are the inputs to the outcome.
Right. But number 3 is obviously don't start from scratch, don't reinvent the wheel. But number 4 is...
Sorry, if you don't have to. I mean, there are countries where you need to invent.
But there is a lot, I think we heard that there is a lot there to work. There's a lot of complexity. In fact, the point is, how do you identify where to focus on? And we talked earlier about working backwards, right? These are all inputs factor, but they don't explain the adoption curve of the EO app.
The adoption curve that's a very good point. First of all, the app is called EO, which in Italian means me, I. And it really started, as I said, we did not invent enabling platforms, but we did create the final outcome. I was preparing this conversation with Leonardo, and I received a notification from the city of Milan that I paid for the property taxes, which I did 2 days ago, just clicking on the app, which made me really proud of paying taxes. We started from a vision document. While we were working on all the basic planning, we're starting on the vision the document, and was the history of a woman, Anna, who works, has 3 children, and needs to take care of a bunch of things. And we pretty much invented this, what Anna does during her 10 subway stops from home to work. And she was able to get the kids into kindergarten, paying the taxes for the cleaning person that works for her and help her. So did 5 or 6 tasks in those 10 subway stops. Obviously, it's a vision, right? It's
Right.
vision documents. But we're able to start there and work backwards and build what becomes the EO app. Now, this is the story. It's 2 years for building the enabling platforms. It got into the Google Store and the Apple stores in 2020. And then we were incredibly lucky. COVID came, which pretty much we attached, I had already started, they attached, the team there, to the app, the green pass, the vaccine certificate. So in order to get the vaccine certificate digitally, you needed to have that app, which forced pretty much the download of we had a couple million digital identities when I left. It all of a sudden went up to 30 plus million. Pretty much almost every citizen in age of understanding digital above 18 years old had that app. The other forcing function, as I said, was payment. At my time, Matteo Renzi introduced a culture bonus. Italy is a country of high taxes, and let's make it up with a little bonuses for the customers, for the citizens. It's called the culture bonus. Once you turn 18, you received a few €100 to buy books, tickets to theaters, museums, and so on. So we said, okay, perfect. Dear 18-year-old, do you want the money? You need to have the app. So it is always connecting reasons, very strong reasons to have that app versus the generic messaging, archiving, and I can do my driving license and keep the driving license on the app, keep the identity card on the app, which are all great reasons, but not a reason on their own to have that app. Mm-hmm. And then working with the thousands of administrations, because every single municipalities had to integrate their service. And that was also another incredible experience. And that's tip number 4, which is if an administration thinks, oh, my needs are different, we already have our solution, we don't want to work with you, move on. Go to the next administration. Don't waste a second of your time to try to convince administrations that don't want to do it, because it's wasted time. Over time, when the whole country will have that system, they will come along. If it works, if it really is useful.
Right.
And those are the numbers. So we got 38 million digital identity users, 15,000, almost 1,600 agencies on board. Those are the last numbers. And we use the word agencies, but one school is part of that, right? So one single school, one single local tax authority, one single municipality. So all agencies that have a relationship with citizens. We have 3,022,000 services on board. A lot of them are payment services, others are messaging services, other are archiving services, all of them. And 7.8 million options. What does that mean? That out of the 38 million users, 7.8 million, put it in there, either their credit card account or their PayPal account or their bank account.
Sure.
So that every time happens. Which you might say, wow, it should be 38 million users, it should be 38 million payments. I'd consider that already a result. I don't know if you've ever been on an Italian autostrada. There are 3 types of lines. One is for the digital reading, boom, you flow through it. One is for the credit card. You got 2 lanes, and you have usually 5 or 10 cars. And then there are the 10 for cash payments, and you have 500 cars in line. Italians don't trust still digital payments. But they will come along. But that's the point. So how to make those concrete? Payment is the key.
For me, one of the most interesting things is that a lot of this adoption curve grew after you left. And one of the most difficult things to do when you build extraordinary things is to make them last. Because they gave you an exceptional mandate, but then governments change. So how do you create that continuity?
We did, first of all, when we left, we built it, when I left. And by the way, I left because I committed for 2 years. The 5-star movement won the elections in 2018, June 2018. I had to spend a lot of months in convincing them that we shouldn't all be fired simply because the previous government put us in place, because whether you're the center, the left, and the right, you need that. So it was my job stopped from driving the team to become the chief evangelist officer in convincing the new government that they did not have to reinvent the wheel. We already did it. And we were able to succeed in that. So you need to have a lot of sheer will, and also show things that work. When you start showing numbers that were interesting, they made it part of their agenda.
Right.
So that was the key. So we built the plan, and in the plan, by the way, was the suggestion to build the Ministry of Innovation Technology, which came with the Draghi government after that. And so the Ministry of Innovation Technology, pretty much with the same people that stayed, kept building on that, because we had built a real clear plan on what things that needed to be done. And again, there are a couple lucky situations. You had COVID that generated a forcing function for that. And as soon as more municipalities came on board, you could pay, simple. There's a tax on garbage collection in Italy for each municipalities that is really hard to pay. Don't forget one thing. Yes, a lot of people in Italy evade taxes. But of those, a lot of it also do it because it's so freaking hard to pay. So at least we went after the people that, if it was easy, they would pay. And we got a little result around that. So that's an example.
But the other thing you did was that principle of segregating technology choices from political choices became an institution that administers that now.
That is correct. In fact, the Pago PA became a 100% owned company by CDP, which is the investment banking of government, and the Ministry of Finance. So we're able to isolate the payment structure from politicians. Just putting in a very operating ministerial structure, but is not run by politicians, but is run by civil servants, by operators, people that will stay. And in fact, when I left, the team was 12 or 13 people. There are now 300 people. And it's self-sustaining. They had and it's living out of the small commissions, like, I think, 1 fraction of a cent of a euro for each transaction. There's been like several billions transacted on that platform in those years.
And one of the things we the flip side of evangelizing and explaining what you were doing was also having to build unlikely coalitions. What were the hardest things, the hardest obstacles that you had to overcome in building this effective digital government?
Well, let's be clear, by the way. The digital government in Italy is still far from being effective.
Right.
There are still, trying to get a passport because the Ministry of Interior did not want to be part of this is still a freaking nightmare. It is just try to renew a passport in Italy
I can confirm.
Is awful. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs just started to integrate in that system. So we're still far from being an Estonia, okay?
Right.
But the point is really building, sorry, it sounds like incredibly trivial, but it's really building a service that works and explaining, I mean, taking the time to explain the politicians in charge, which don't really care about making government efficient. A, because they don't understand it. B, because they wouldn't know how to do it. That if citizens have a happier relationship, transactional relationship, you can have, different political ideas, but at least if you have a happy transactional relationship with your constituency, it helps.
Right. And one of those things were, by the way, we were discussing was not having to log into the app every time.
Oh, yes. So, for example, that's a great point. I forgot about it. One of the other things that I learned, I don't know if this is tip number 5 or 6. In government, you're always going to hear, oh, no, we can't do this. Why can't you do this? And you got 2 answers. For privacy reasons or for security reasons. Those are the 2 standard answers. Obviously, if you don't know what they're talking about, you stop there and say, all right, privacy doesn't allow me to do it. Then you ask, you don't need to get all the way to the 5 whys. At the second why, you understand that the answer was BS. And that, obviously, at this point, it's really sheer will to say, okay, if the privacy law doesn't allow this, let me talk to the person that runs the privacy office.
Right.
And that's the advantage of being in Rome, by the way. You got them all there.
And it takes time.
And
right?
9 times out of 10, it was not a privacy reason. Security. Okay, let me talk to the cybersecurity agency. And 9 times out of 10, it was not a cybersecurity reason. So you heard that before. I'm giving you a concrete example of how being operationally savvy and competent, but not like a deep scientist, like understanding the basic things on how large organizations work and how technology work, it gives you like a disproportionate advantage.
Yeah, somebody said common sense is like oxygen. The higher you go, the thinner it gets. But we're almost out of time, not out of oxygen.
And we totally went out of plot.
Yeah, that's okay. That's the Italianity in it. But we still haven't used the A word, which is AI. And this is a commission. Well, the incoming commission has, the current will have to implement the AI Act, the Interoperable Europe Act. I had to say it twice. What would have you done differently if you had generative AI when you were commissioner? And what are your tips to the next commission to implement with the AI word?
So I don't really, those are hard. But before I get into that, at my time, so 2016, 2017, 2018, the buzzword was not AI. By the way, AI is not just a buzzword. But the one I'm going to tell you was a buzzword. I don't know if you guys remember. Blockchain. Blockchain for government. Blockchain will fix all the problems. I always thought it was like, there's nonsense around that. And where's blockchain in government now these days? Anyway. But AI is not a buzzword. It really works. We would have been users of AI to make things faster and more efficient. Just now, with generative AI, with natural language processing, going into finding out all the privacy regulations that will impact on building a digital identity system. It took us weeks, if not months. It's going to take you minutes now. So it would be, this is just, whether it's in government, it's in other, just a tool to go faster, right? Obviously, you need to have the double check and everything, but it would have made we could have done a lot of those things, not in months, but in weeks. That is absolutely for sure. I'm going to tell you what my dream with generative AI is, which is really, and I'm very, perhaps a little too low level here, it's the possibility of diving deep into the billions of texts in the very different legislations that are totally useless and completely simplify, at least from a textual perspective, from a regulation perspective, that part. Is that going to save the world? No. Is that going to make life a little easier and less contradicting and less stupid? Probably yes. Just think about how many regulations today exist that at the national level are in contradiction with the European level, or that the European level are in contradiction with the relationship with the US. I mean, there is so much around that. And think about the armies of people that we're paying that are doing that in a non-efficient way.
So to all the companies here, you have your challenge for next year's conference. Come up and simplify decision-making.
This is to me, like, and again, obviously, I'm not going to touch AI for health. I mean, those are things that are way above me, and they're very, very important. They're going to be incredibly useful to governments and humanity in general. But in this specific, very trivial answer is how to make this, is the decision-making becoming more efficient and more effective
and
at the same time, and simpler.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing.
Look, in the spirit of fighting stigma, I'm going to wrap it up. Otherwise, they'll tell the usual Italians.
We see some questions.
Oh, right.
What role did EU standards and laws play in Italy's digitizations? I'm not updated, but definitely at that time, as I think I mentioned in this, we followed religiously all the interoperability standards, which are absolutely. Don't forget, by the way, this thing about that the US innovates, China copies, and Europe regulates, I'm fed up with that. It's a little bit too, I mean, yes, we have a brand stigma, and we somehow deserve that, but we should go beyond that. I mean, policies are needed. We need policies. The issues are excessive policies and wrong policies.
Yeah.
But we need policies. How did you formulate your vision for the government, and how did you ensure that it fits the vision with politicians? That was part of our evangelist role. It's really, and don't forget, when you get into politicians, you speak their language, and you tell them, we're going to solve this issue, they come back. They follow you. They follow you. They cancel all the questions. It's time to go. They're probably going to pick this up. But there was one that I want to pick it up. Say, why didn't you write a book around it? Because there are way too many books. And there are way too many people writing useless books, and I don't want to be one of those.
So we fought some stigmas, but we kept some others. So just
but we did build a 3-year plan. So you want to read, there is
true.
a 3-year plan, and it's kind of
read
boring.
the blog. Anna is still around, by the way. She's very contemporary, and she's going to continue to grow.
Yes.
With the tips that you just shared. Diego, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for following.
Thank you.